When you look at the world stage today, there are few leaders as powerful and, frankly, as polarizing as Narendra Modi. He's absolutely adored by hundreds of millions, but also deeply questioned by many others. He has fundamentally reshaped the world's largest democracy. But who is he really? Let's do a teardown of the man, the myth, and the political machine he's built.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll tackle the central paradox of his identity. Then, we'll go back to his roots, his origins. We'll look at how he perfected his political formula in Gujarat, and then how he scaled that up as prime minister. We'll deconstruct his personal brand, which is crucial. And finally, we'll try to get a handle on the nation he has reshaped.
All right, let's get right into it with the main puzzle of his entire political career. You see, to really get Modi, you have to understand that he's basically two different figures, often at the exact same time. So which is he? Is he the visionary modernizer, the guy building a $5 trillion economy for a new India? Or is he the populist strongman, the product of a Hindu nationalist ideology who's remaking the country's whole identity? Well, the answer? It's complicated. It really breaks down like this. On one side, you have the modernizer. He's a pro-business, global statesman, and his favorite word is Vikas, which means development. But then, on the other side, you have the strongman. He's a lifelong ideologue, and his focus is on virasat, or heritage. His whole career has been this incredible balancing act between these two personas. To really wrap your head around this paradox, we have to go back, way back, to his formative years, where both of these identities were forged. And not in some fancy political school, but in the highly disciplined, ideological world of a Hindu nationalist organization. His path was not the path of a typical politician. At just 8 years old, he gets involved with the Hindu nationalist group, the RSS. By 21, he makes a huge life decision. He becomes a pracharak, a full-time celibate missionary for the cause. He learned his political skills in the trenches, organizing the underground resistance during India's state of emergency. It was only in 2001, after decades as a backroom operator, that he was suddenly put in a position of public power as the Chief Minister of Gujarat. And this is where we get these two different origin stories. The one you hear about is the Chaiwallah, the humbly tea seller. It's an incredibly powerful brand that connects with millions of ordinary Indians. But his actual political DNA, his legendary work ethic, his discipline, his ideological core, that comes from the austere, disciplined life of an RSS pracharak. One is the public brand, the other is the private bedrock. So let's talk about his time as Chief Minister of Gujarat, because this place was basically the laboratory. It's where this dual identity of development and division was tested, perfected, and ultimately weaponized. Just 5 months after he took office, Gujarat just exploded. After this horrific train-burning incident in Godhra, a wave of retaliatory violence swept the state. The really serious allegation wasn't just that his government failed to stop the violence, but that it was actually complicit, with widespread reports of police just standing by as mobs attacked Muslim communities. International observers like Human Rights Watch came to some damning conclusions, saying the attacks were planned with state cooperation. For years after this, Modi was basically a pariah on the world stage. He was even banned from entering the United States. Now, it is absolutely crucial to note that a special investigation team appointed by India's own Supreme Court later found no prosecutable evidence against him, which legally cleared his name. In the aftermath of the riots, Modi pulled off this major political pivot. He totally rebranded himself as a Vikas Purush, a development man, and started selling the Gujarat Model to the world. And the narrative was powerful, right? High growth, huge investment, a CEO-style leader getting things done. The reality, though, was a bit more complex. While the economy did grow, the state was lagging on really important things like poverty reduction, health spending, and literacy. It was a tale of two Gujarats. So this dual strategy, the pro-business modernizer on one hand, the Hindu nationalist protector on the other, that was the formula. And in 2014, he took that exact formula to the national stage. As prime minister, he just scaled it up for all of India. His style of governing has always been defined by these huge, top-down decisions. The most audacious, by far, was the 2016 demonetization. He gets on TV one night, out of the blue, and declares that 86% of the nation's cash would be worthless in just 4 hours. He framed it as this great crusade against corruption. Well, the policy caused just immense disruption and hardship for ordinary people. And that main goal of getting rid of so-called black money, the country's central bank later reported that 99.3% of all the invalidated cash
came right back into the banking system, which suggests very, very little of it was actually destroyed. But at the same time he's doing these big economic shocks, he's also rolling out these massive welfare schemes. But it's a new kind of welfarism. Instead of abstract programs, he delivered tangible things directly to people: a toilet, a gas cylinder, a bank account. And this created this huge new political constituency they call the Labarthi, or the beneficiary. Millions of voters who feel this direct, personal connection to the leader who gave them these things.
Then, after an even bigger election victory in 2019, his government moved fast to implement the core, decades-long agenda of the RSS, getting rid of Kashmir's special status, passing a controversial citizenship law that uses religion as a criteria, and consecrating the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. These weren't just policies, they were foundational moves to reshape India's secular identity. And that shows us something really important. To understand Modi's success, looking at policy alone is never enough. You have to deconstruct the brand itself, because for him, the persona, the image, it isn't just an accessory to power, it is the source of his power. He basically performs 3 core archetypes, and he does it brilliantly. First, there's the Chaiwallah, the man of the people. Then there's the fakir, the sort of spiritual guide who's given up everything for the nation. And finally, there's the Chaukidar, the strongman protector. And he just shifts between these roles fluidly depending on who he's talking to. And you better believe, not a single detail is left to chance. The signature Modi jacket, the different kinds of headgear he wears, those carefully staged photos of him meditating in a cave, it is all political theater. And it's all amplified by this massive social media machine that lets him bypass the traditional media and speak directly to his tens of millions of followers, reinforcing these roles 24/7. So, after all that, what does it mean? What is his legacy shaping up to be? Well, let's go back to that paradox we started with, the modernizer versus the strongman. The answer, it turns out, is that they're not in conflict at all. They're symbiotic. They work together. The promise of development and welfare buys him the political capital he needs to push a divisive ideological agenda. In turn, that nationalist fervor creates a super loyal base that will stick with him, even through economic pain. It's a really powerful political feedback loop. So his legacy is really this dual reality. On the one hand, he's undeniably made India more ambitious, more assertive on the world stage, but on the other, he's also left it more socially polarized, especially between its majority Hindu and minority Muslim communities, and with political power more centralized in one person's office than at any time in recent memory. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative question. After the 2024 election, for the first time in his entire career as prime minister, he has to rely on coalition partners to govern. So, can this highly centralized, personality-driven style of leadership adapt to a brand new political reality, a reality that demands compromise and consensus? The next chapter of his story, and of India's story, really hangs on that answer.